Business ownership at 18. Not working for a business, not managing a department, but owning a business. Hiring people, making payrolls, being responsible for livelihoods when you're barely old enough to vote. Most people would run from that scenario. Shelby McFarland, she leaned into it. At 18, she co-owned a window tint and sign shop. She managed employees who'd been in the workforce since before she was born. She learned what it really took to earn their respect and how to react when the debt was stacked against her. And those lessons, they became the foundation for everything she's built since. I'm Steve Goodson, and this is Consulting from the Couch, a podcast about leaders, what makes them tick, what drives them, and the challenges they face. Today's conversation is about starting before you're ready, building something meaningful from scratch, and leading with heart in a world that sometimes mistakes kindness for weakness. Let's get going. Shelby, welcome to the virtual couch.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start where most entrepreneurship stories don't usually start. At age 18, you weren't just you weren't just managing people, you weren't just leading a team, you were a business owner. You co-owned a window tint and sign shop. So take me back to that moment and tell me about how that kind of even happened.
Yeah, so I had a full ride to college and I decided to give that up and pursue what I thought was making money. I was like, I don't want to go to college. I want to just go straight into the workforce and make money. Yeah, it wasn't that easy, but anyway, so that was the choice and the path I took. And then I connected with that partner at the time, and that was his dream, was to have a window tint and sign shop. So I was like, cool, let's do it. Like, I didn't have a dream of my own, so I supported him in what he did. And so I was like, okay. And I just jumped in head first and, well, body first, all of it, the whole thing, the feet, the head, the arms, everything. And so we just kind of did it, and there was no business plan, there was no marketing plan, there was no plan at all. It was just, hey, let's buy some window tint and let's start going to people's houses and doing it. And then that just kind of grew into a big monster within the first year, more so than what we ever thought. But it was exciting, but also really scary at the same time. But I'm really proud of, who I was at 18 that did it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So 18,
Yeah.
you're not just learning to lead because you had employees, but you're learning to run a business. You're dealing with payroll, customers, operations, all the stuff that comes along with running the business. And you're doing it with employees who probably, some of them may be around your age, but there may have been some that were significantly older than you.
hmm
Couple questions. So what was that first day like? And, do you remember like walking in as an owner and looking around thinking, what have I gotten myself into?
I still think that 14 years later. No,
Understand.
so yeah, so I think having employees older than me, I just kind of got used to that because I've always been more mature for my age than what I really am, like age wise or whatever. So um, my partner was also older, so that kind of helped a little bit. But then I kind of have a demanding presence about myself, so it was kind of easy to like take that leadership role. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like I'm very authoritative, as in like, okay, let's you do that, you do this, I'll do that, all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty simple and easy to get along with, but also I know how to take people's strengths and make the business work, everyone together.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like went in with this, and with that attitude of, so what if I'm younger than them? Like, I've always been the youngest everywhere, ever, like my whole career. I've always been the youngest in my leads group. Any kind of board that I've ever been a part of, the civic organizations, I've always been the youngest. And so I was just like, well, I don't let that, interfere with other things. Why would I let that interfere with my business? And I don't know, when you treat people right and you treat them with respect, they respect you. And I think that was like a really big thing that I learned at a young age was I can't treat them like crap because then they're not going to respect me. I have to earn that respect.
Yeah.
But the first day, it was just me and him. But it was about a year in whenever we started hiring, and it happened to be friends. And I wasn't really for that, but it was just kind of what happened. And so it was hard to transition from, oh, we're friends, to now, no, you have to like listen to like what I say.
Yeah. So that's a great lead in. So, um, I worked in the utility industry for 35 years, and I watched leaders, myself as a leader, kind of progress, up through the ranks. Some slow, some faster than others. Um, you just jumped in at 18, and learning by the fire. So you mentioned hiring friends. Don't know if this is going to be part of your answer, but what was the hardest part of those early days?
Ooh, I would say just figuring everything out. Like, I have it set out in probably the next 5 years. I want to come up with like this program for new business owners, right? It's like there is not anything out there that has an outline of you need to do this, 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 and this. It's just a bunch of, okay, you need to hire a lawyer, a CPA, a bookkeeper, a marketing agency. Like, there's just all these things of like, oh, I have to do this, but not really. I mean, you can learn how to do things on your own. I did our taxes for the probably the first 3 years. And I don't recommend, like, I don't recommend that. But like back then I was like, okay, let's just like figure it out. And I think that that was the hardest part, is going, well, what do I do next? Okay, well, how do I do this? It's a bunch of like trial and error, especially now that I'm in the marketing field. I didn't realize how much I was learning back then about marketing the old school way, yellow pages and things like that. And so I think that's definitely the hardest thing that I had to face, was just figuring out what's next. Have we got all the legal documents done? Have I done the taxes right? Have I paid the taxes? How do I save for taxes? Things like that that you just don't learn unless, I guess, you go to college. I'm not really sure where you learn that. Maybe
I don't know.
college, maybe
Yeah,
your
yeah.
parents.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know. That's all the non-fun stuff, right? That you
Yes.
that all the stuff that you have to do. You said something interesting. You said about earning respect, with the employees, and so I want to just ask the question about that. So 18 years old, not 19 potentially, I guess, when you hire employees after
Hmm.
that first year, you but you're also and they're friends. Some of them are friends. Uh, Youngest person in the room, you're also signing their checks. So what does that conversation look like from the perspective of earning respect, friends, boss, the whole rigmarole that's associated with that?
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. Like, I did not handle it very well. I was very young. Looking back, obviously immature compared to the leader I am today. So I don't think I handled things very well every time. I think that there was times that I would get those lines mixed up of like, okay, well, now I'm like raising my voice at this person because they're also friends, because we just hung out all weekend and I'm kind of tired of them. Well, then now I'm going to work with them on Monday,
Yeah,
But then, I don't really have a great answer for that, because it was just all such a big learning curve,
yeah,
and I didn't do very well at it. I'm glad I didn't do well now, because now I'm like really great at it. And of course, we're still growing as leaders and all that.
yeah.
But the bad things I did then, I learned, and I'm like, okay, we're not going to do that again.
Learn,
So,
yeah, learn
yeah.
from your mistakes and learn from that. So you mentioned your business partner. He former business partner now. You said he was a little bit older. Um, I think you said he. But is there something particular? Had he been in business before? Had he owned a business, or was there something potentially that you learned from him, um, and him being a business owner? And the second part of that question, going in business at 18 years old by yourself is hard enough, but then having a partner that you've got to kind of make joint decisions with, and things like that. So talk a little bit about those dynamics, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So we were married, so we got
Okay.
married young. And I would say that going in business with your spouse is not the most ideal thing.
Yeah.
And I never recommend it unless you were just so solid in your relationship that you were like, okay, we can do this. Like, it is not a recommendation of mine to do that because you get things mixed up. You know, emotions get high. Women, we have lots of hormone issues. We get emotional. We get offended. You know, all the things. Guys, they'll get disrespected, but they don't really understand how to separate it. So it's just a whole thing. So
Yeah.
I would say that, you know, having a partner was hard for me because it wasn't a great marriage. And so then we had to then separate that to like go to business and make sure we're
Yeah.
making money and paying our bills and that kind of stuff. And I wanted us to be successful. Like that was something like no matter what was happening personally, I wanted the business to be successful because I put so much into it. And I learned a lot of things what not to do when from his ownership because he never owned a business before.
Okay.
And it was one of those things where he was disrespectful to clients. He was not very great with communication with our employees. Like there was a lot of gaps that I had to fill. And then that made my job as like the marketer really hard because if these people are coming in mad and he's disrespecting them, well, then I'm having to step in and go, hey, listen, I'm sorry. You know, how do you like do that? Like, how do you say, I'm sorry that he's acting this way? But then also I have to respect his position, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was challenging, but I am grateful for learning the skills that I did because I learned how to tint cars. I learned how to tint windows. And we started the sign shop together, and I'm still doing that to this day. Of course, I've got a team of people now, which is great. It's not
Yeah.
just me. But it was cool to learn skills, even like working on a car. I don't know things that we did to cars,
Yeah.
like we would take emblems off, and just random things. So I'm grateful for the skills that I learned during that time, and then also the things of what not to do in leadership, to be
Yeah.
just blunt.
Yeah. That's understandable. So, but 18 to 22, window tint and sign shop. During that time, were did someone directly challenge your authority at any point? I'm sure in 4 years. And you know, how did you handle that? I mean, you lost the room or you lost an
Yeah.
employee or something. Talk about that and talk about that situation. Maybe probably several, but just talk about one that might stand out to you.
Yeah. So, whenever you're in business with a partner, a romantic partner, there are those lines like I was talking about. And I think the fact that him disrespecting me in front of our employees
Oh wow,
got
yeah,
into their head to disrespect me as well. And so when there were any kind of tips about, oh, I don't want to do that today, or why are you, stacking so many cars in here, or whatever. Like I'm the scheduler, and I knew what their capacity was. I knew what their ability was, and I knew how many we could push out every day. But sometimes they came to work and they didn't want to work, and that's not my problem. Like you come to work to work. I mean, I don't care if you're lazy or not. And so I think that when there were those times that I was disrespected by employees, didn't have someone to take my back. And again, being
yeah,
as young as I was, I didn't really understand what was happening, and I didn't really know how to respond to that. So I don't really have a great, like, hey, this is how I overcame that. I really didn't. It was something I had to deal with because I didn't have that support from the other
yeah.
partner in those
But
situations.
so what it sounds like though to me is that during this time, um, you were growing up and you were learning some hard
Yeah.
lessons. You were learning
Yes.
lessons that you were learning lessons about people. You were learning lessons about trust. You were learning lessons,
Mm,
honestly, about leadership, and whether good or bad, you were learning those lessons a lot of times about things what not to do, what
yes.
how not to react. So you're getting a crash course in business and leadership during this time. So looking back on that, if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self something now,
Hmm.
um, when you were starting that business, anything you would tell yourself then?
Oh yeah. I would just encourage her to be more vocal, be more confident, know that she is more than what she is in that moment. Like her future is so bright. I was so tired of hearing that as a kid of like, oh, your future's so bright. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like I told my kid that, like, oh, your future's so bright,
Yeah.
you know. But now that I know what my future is, I'm like, oh, well, it was bright. Okay, thank you. So I think that I would definitely go back and tell her, you know, be more confident, be sure of yourself. I was not sure of myself
Yeah.
whatsoever at that age. And just know that I deserve to be in the role that I was in.
Yeah.
That was something I didn't know back then, too. So I think it would just be a lot of encouragement and also to get out of that situation a lot sooner than what I had allowed myself
Yeah.
to be in.
So we get placed in situations for reasons. And
Yep.
that was why, I mean, 18 to 22, four formative years where you learned a lot. And
Yeah.
you were placed in that position for a reason. And so at 22, you decide, hey, I'm going to do something different. You're going to start the marketing broker. So
Hmm.
kind of might know what prompted that transition, but talk a little bit about that and talk about just the fact that you're 22, second career already at 22, and time to start something different.
Yeah, so I had to get out of that relationship and it took a while, but I finally got the courage to leave. I remember I had a 500 square foot apartment and an air mattress that had a freaking hole in it. And so every morning at 2 o'clock, I would reach back and go, okay, blow it up again. And then I'd go back to sleep. But career wise, I had a lot of people ask me about social media because I had created like our business as a whole online was so great. And so then Facebook, like during that whole time I had that business, Facebook had opened up business pages. And so I had to teach
Yeah.
myself, okay, how do I do business pages? How do I do Instagram? All the things. And so I had friends that were like, hey, can you help me set up my stuff? And I mean, I would do it for free. Like, sure, yeah, I'll help you. And then I was like, wait, I could do this and like get paid for it. Like,
Yeah.
this is the part that I enjoy the most about business was marketing. Like, that's how
Yeah.
I knew I even liked marketing was like, well, this is a part I like. I knew I hated finances. Like, ask my bookkeeper now. Thank God for him because I do not do well. But I knew the creative side, getting the business, selling, that kind of stuff was what I really enjoyed about business. And so I opened up one of the first five agencies here in Arkansas that provides social media management for customers or like businesses. And so that was in 2016 and it was a hard start because people didn't understand social media then.
Yeah.
And so it was just like more of an education. But then on a personal side, like I had been trapped for 4 years, so I was partying, I was doing stupid stuff, I was dating around. Like it was just like I look back and I see my OG clients today, and I still have some of them. I call them my OGs, like the ones that like somehow
Yeah.
trusted me back then. But I'm like, why did you even like trust me? And they're like, well, we knew that you were smart. And I'm like, I mean, that's great. Thank you. You know, if it wasn't for those 5 to 6 people, I wouldn't have been able to continue my business and know what I could do in it and how it would build and all that 10 years later. So yeah, I definitely thought marketing was easy, but then I still had to be a business owner and manage my own time and sales and things like that.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a remarkable, powerful, testament. The 4 years that you went through, came out the other side. This just the things you learned from the marketing aspect. Not, you learned the marketing things, but you learned about the business. You learned
Yeah.
about, you learned about leadership. You learned about being a boss, the marketing boss. You learned, just so many lessons learned. So you're building the marketing broker. You're recruiting your first team members. So how was building a team as a 22-year-old different than managing or building a team when you were 18? Did you approach it differently, different
Mm.
leadership style? So talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I'm reinventing myself, 22 years old, trying to figure out who Shelby is as a person. I kind of knew who I was as a business owner and business leader, but I didn't really know who I was personally. So I'm trying to figure that out. Um, but I did the solo thing for about 2 years. So that would put me at 24. And then I saw one of my competitors. They had posted on, which, by the way, is super toxic. Everyone watching, do not look at your competitors. Do not compare yourself. So, anyways, I looked at one of my competitors online, and I noticed that they had added all these people to their team. And I was like, oh my God, everyone's like engaging with it, like, oh, good job. This person looks so successful. I was like, wow, they added like 5 people to their team. Now they're going to be like this big business. Like, how am I going to keep up with this as like a solo person over here? And so I just went out and was like, screw it. I mean, I can do that, right? I can add people. And so I go and I hire, I think it was 4 people at the time, and I'm sitting around a table and for our first meeting, and I look at, like, think to myself, well, what are these people going to do exactly? I had not thought any of this through. I mean, I was just like, get people in the room. I want you to work for me. Like, we're going to be a powerhouse. Like, we got this. But there was no like outline of these are your duties and this is the processes and this is how we're going to grow our business. And I mean, I'm very humbled to have to say this, is like a month later, I had to let all of them go. I had no
Oh
idea what
wow.
I was doing. I lost money. I just paid them, but I didn't do the correct things on the back end. I knew where I wanted to go, but I had gotten ahead of myself in that way. And I typically tend to do that, but now I'm like trained where I'm like, okay, I've got, people, I've got a business coach and stuff that I actually consult with before making decisions, because I now know that I don't need to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so having my business coach, I hired him right after that, told him the whole situation. And so then we start putting processes together, and he's like, you know what, it's just going to take time. And I had to realize, like, I'm not that other company. I am me. What's working for me? What's working for my clients? And how am I going to be able to see myself grow, but not necessarily in the same way they are? And I took a couple years to really focus on myself and understand, like, okay, this is where I'm going to be at as a business owner. Then COVID hit. Then I had a baby. Yes, I had a COVID baby. I was one of those people. And so, having a baby and like doing all that. And now I have an amazing team. So I'm, fast forward 10 years later and finally understanding, oh, well, this is a process and these are the team members and this is what each person does and this is how we communicate. And it's been a learning curve. I didn't just jump in at 22 and be like, okay, yeah, let's hire all these people. And I was super successful. It was like you mentioned earlier, I learned the lesson and I always learn it
Yeah.
the hard way. I don't know why.
And I would say probably maybe, and you might agree with this, might disagree, but I think as a business owner, I worked for a business for so long, and then I retired, and now I'm trying to do this. But being a business owner, one of the biggest things you have to learn is patience. You have to learn
Oh,
it's a slow grind, right? It's not just going to happen immediately. I mean, if it does, more power to you, and
right.
you found that pot of gold. But one of the interesting things uh, is being patient and understanding that. And that was a great little tidbit. Don't look at what the competitors are doing. Focus on what you're doing and stay true to that. And that kind of leads to the next question. So you went through that process. You hired the folks. You let them go. It was a slow build, but eventually you did start adding team members.
Yes.
And you started adding folks that were, I'm assuming, passionate about marketing, passionate about communication. Um, and passion is one thing, but I want to talk about. I'm a really big culture guy. I think
Ah,
culture is everything, um, and I believe culture doesn't happen accidentally. I think it's intentional.
yes.
So through all this, you're making intentional decisions. But walk me through how you built culture at the marketing broker and now. Um,
Mhm.
Again, drawing on past experiences.
So I think culture, it goes further than just the people that work for us too. I think
Yeah,
that the clients I bring in, a lot of people just stop culture at like, oh, well, this is what happens in the office. No, like your culture is how you sell yourself. It's how you get the clients, and they have to see who you are. And, I really try to be the most authentic person as I can. If you follow me on social media, I'm all about, let's post about, my daughter, my work, if something didn't happen. I put the wrong QR code on a freaking huge piece of perforated vinyl. And it was the funniest thing I'd ever done. Like, I posted about it because I was like, I just went and did this beautiful perforated vinyl. The QR code goes to someone that lives in a different state. It was just like, just like showing those things about
Yeah.
business. But like my culture inside, I want, my girls know that they can come and communicate with me about anything. If they have things that's going on personally, I make sure that if it's something I can do to help them out, I'm not a leader that's like, oh, that's their task and they're the only ones that can get that done. Like, absolutely not. I've done this for 10 years. Like, tell me what you need me to do. How can I help you? If your workload is a little bit too much, okay, well, how can we kind of spend your time a little differently? And also just kind of receiving feedback as I give feedback. I think that's
Yeah.
very important as a leader too. Like, we have to open that door and understand that we're not going to like what we hear. We may not like it, but it's going to help us be a better person and also be a better leader moving forward. And culture wise, I'm very proud of what I have built in the business because everyone's friendly with each other. My clients know, like, hey, they'll text me at night, but they also know that I will respond in the morning time. And so it's just or setting those expectations out, I
Yeah.
think is a really big thing about culture too. Like, what kind of expectations do you want on yourself, your team, and your clients? Like, what does that look like? And being able to clearly put those out there where everybody can communicate back and forth and know that they're all on the same page.
Yeah, and I think too from a leader standpoint, I always thought that it was my job to position the folks that, and I always said, people said mincing words, but I thought it was very important to me, whether I had 10 or 15 employees that reported to me, I supervised, whatever title, however you want to say it. I always said that they worked with me. I
Yes.
never said they worked for me. I always said they worked with me. But I always thought that the folks that worked with me, it was my responsibility to position them to succeed,
Absolutely.
to put them in the best position, and to do whatever I could um, in my efforts to make them have a good day, to enjoy what they're doing, but most of all succeed. And so whatever I had to do to and like you said, hopping in and, hey, you look
Yeah.
like you look a little frazzled. What's going on? What's how can I help? What can I do? And that's
Yeah.
that's servant leadership, and it's something that's probably lacking a lot, you know,
Oh,
today. So let me tell you the thing that caught my eye about your story, is the concept of heart led marketing. And in a world where we have data driven, metric focused, ROI obsessed things, you're talking about heart. And I know that those other things are important to you as a marketer; they have to
right.
be. But you talk about heart. So, and some people may hear that and think mushy,
Ooh.
salty feely, mushy feely. But I don't think that's what you mean by that. Explain what heart led marketing is, and why it matters.
Yeah, heart-led marketing. I guess I've never thought about it being mushy, but that's funny. Uh, so I correlate that with authenticity, and again, that's my brand. That's
Yep.
who I am. The person I'm talking to you, like who I am talking to you, is the same one that my daughter's going to get after she gets home from school today. It's the same one that my partner gets when he gets off work. It's just the same one I show up for my best friend. I'll probably say a few more curse words around my best friend, but you know what I mean. Like,
That's
it's
you.
the same type
Yeah.
of person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's very important as business owners. Let's talk about our brand. We are a brand. You have your business, but you personally, as a business owner, have a brand as well. So you need to lead with your heart in that brand. You need to share your passions. You need to be yourself around people so they know what to expect when they do business with you. But then, on a business standpoint, heart led marketing is show your employees, celebrate them online. Anything you're posting on social, I want to see as much. as I can of the business, behind the scenes, the products, the people. That stuff is more important because you are selling to people. You're a person selling to people. So if we
Yeah.
are only doing things that are numbers driven, then we kind of become a robot. We don't want to be AI. AI is like its own thing. I love AI, but like we'll let it do it. And I want us to be people selling to people. And with my customers, that's our strategy. I'm like, okay, well, we need to come take pictures. We need to do videos. We need to make sure we are putting those personal touches on social media because we are bombarded with ads every day as
Yeah.
consumers. So how are we separating ourselves? And if you are dealing with people and selling to them, they want to know who they're dealing with before they even call you. They want
Yeah.
to see your face. They want to know who you are. They want to see your employees.
That's
And
right.
then they'll call you.
Yeah. So something you said in that that resonated with me a lot, but you talked about authenticity
Yeah.
and being authentic. And I was blessed. A lot of people, communications, marketing in the electric utility world. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. It's straight. It's straightforward. And even beyond that, I work for an electric cooperative, which is even more rooted
Yeah.
in homegrown, your local electric. A lot of times they serve a lot of rural communities and whatnot. But the one thing that I feel very fortunate about was that that space, that especially at co-ops, it's all about servant leadership, and it's not a buzzword. And it's part of the
Yes.
business model. It's part of our business model. And the other thing that I really learned about that was that good leaders, the best leaders, they don't lead with authority; they lead with authenticity. And that's the key. When you genuinely care about people first, things
Yeah.
things just
Yep.
fall in place. They just seem
Yeah.
to just fall in place. And so what you're describing is kind of what is it's kind of what I lived for 5 years, and so again, very, very
Yeah.
intriguing. Now this is one thing, shifting gears a little bit. So as part of being the marketing boss and the CEO, you're juggling something that a lot of leaders face. You're a mom and
Ah,
CEO. That's two full-time jobs. One of your signature speaking topics is mom and CEO. So I'm just curious, how do you navigate that? And more importantly, what's been being a mother taught you
mm.
about leadership that you might not have learned from running a business?
Yeah, so let's start there. So I got pregnant during COVID, and that was a big shock because it was a miracle, honestly, at that point. I'd always been told I wasn't going to have a kid, anyways. So I was like, wow, okay, here we go. We're going to have a baby. That's cool. But if you think about it, my firstborn, I've always joked about my firstborn as turning 10 this year, because it's my business. Like that is my firstborn baby. I like nurtured it. I made sure it grew. We're in the stages now that we're growing even more. So I joke with Kinsey and say she's my second born. She doesn't really like it, but it's funny. Um, but being like a mom has taught me so many things that I didn't know I wasn't ever going to know. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Like if I'd
absolutely.
never been yeah, if I'd never been a mom, I would have been like so selfish, way because I was very selfish before having a kid. I worked a lot. Now I still work a lot, but back then I was putting in 70 to 80 hours a week. I was
Yeah.
always at networking events. Me and her dad were married at the time, and so I didn't put time into our personal relationship, which definitely didn't do it very much justice. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously. And so I was more obsessed with working and chasing money. God, that's all I cared about was like, how much money can I make? What's the next move? How can I get to the next sell? I never celebrated the wins. And so with Kinsey, it taught me to slow down. I thought I was going to be this great mom that was going to work full time, own a business, have employees, and be a mom full time. Like I was going to be this boss of a woman. And let me tell you, I got about 8 months into that and I was like, that's a cute idea. But I was not made to be a full time mother. I was not built for this. This was not
Yeah.
my thing. Like I was, very focused on business. And one of my friends told me, they said, well, why don't you want to put her in daycare? And I was like, well, because I'm controlling and I want to make sure my kid eats what I give her, that she's learning the things I'm teaching her. In that moment, I was just very controlling over what happened to my kid because I didn't want to mess up. And she said, well, we're all gifted with different things. Why don't you allow a teacher or a daycare worker to use their gifts to teach your child? I was like, dang, like that was really powerful to me because I'm like, I expect people to hire me because I'm an expert in marketing.
Yeah.
Why would I not allow someone else to teach my kid and like take care of her? So once I finally did that and let go of knowing that, okay, because I felt like a failure, in that moment. I was like, well, what can I do to help her, but also still feel a little bit in control? So she went to daycare. Now she's almost in kindergarten. She'll start kindergarten this year. So she's thriving in life and way smarter than what I could have ever done full time with her. But as a leader, being a mother has taught me to slow down, to celebrate the small wins. I mean,
Yeah.
just like watching her walk, rolling over, things like that. Like, I need to celebrate the small wins. And as you said earlier, patience. That
Yeah.
is a huge thing that I deal with, and I am not
Yeah.
great at it. I'm
Yeah.
still not
That's
great at it.
tough.
I don't care. It is. It's hard being patient when, I'm like, well, okay, can you please just put your jacket on? Like, bro, put your jacket on. Every morning I'm like, put your jacket on. Just do it. Why can't I do it for you? But I've got to teach her to be independent and like do things on her own. So I think those are the three big things that has taught me from being a mother. And I don't really I don't use the word balance. I use the word harmony. So my life is I harmonize the things of being a mother as well as being a business owner. Sometimes she gets more, sometimes it gets more, and they both just have to understand. Like my team understands that if I've got things to do at the school or a field trip or something like that, I'm not going to be able to talk to them for a couple hours. But then she also understands if she's home from school and mom has 5 meetings back to back to back that I've got to do and be on the call for, she's so great about playing on her own.
Yeah.
And, I'll have lunch with her and, things like that. So it's just finding that harmony between the two. And it's a daily struggle.
Well, and kudos to you because a lot of people think, and I mean, let's just be honest, especially women leaders, they think you
Yeah.
have to choose. They think you have to choose. They think
Yeah.
you have to choose one or the other, but and that you can't be fully present in both roles. But I think you challenged that assumption.
Yeah.
You figured it out, and I think you made a great point. You know your staff, the folks that work with you, are going to understand that there are going to be times that you're just going to be out of pocket. There may be
Right.
a music recital. There may be
Yeah.
an award ceremony or something. Once they start school, and at the
Yeah.
same time, and at the same time, you know, the presence of mind of being home, and you may have to potentially take a call from a client, or it may be
Hmm.
the only time the client can talk, and you're there to work with the client. So really, the key is finding that balance. And a lot of folks, and again, just being honest, a lot of folks, especially women, feel like they have to choose. And you found a way to do both. So I think,
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. So kudos to you. So let's talk a little bit about failure. And
Mm.
you've talked a little bit about it, because I truly believe, and it's a hard lesson when it's happening and when it's going on, but I truly believe that a lot of really good things can come from failing, right? We don't want to make it
Yep.
a habit, but we do need to understand that one of the greatest teachers in life could be failure. You went through these two ventures. You mentioned failure in the window and tint business. You mentioned
Hmm.
some failures in the marketing broker business. Hiring the employees and then having to lay them
Hmm.
off, or firing. Making hard decisions. So tell me about a potential, and you may have mentioned it. If you have, you can just repeat it.
Yeah.
A leadership failure that's really shaped you, and something that's changed how you might approach leadership or being an entrepreneur?
Um, Gosh, I've had so many leadership failures.
Yeah,
Uh,
we all do.
like I feel like the hiring that would have been a really big one.
Yeah,
Hiring at the wrong time and learning that lesson in a hard way
yeah,
because I wasn't. But I think the things I learned most about that was about myself. I was not ready to be a leader. I was not ready to be in charge of people and their families and paying and all that kind of stuff. Before that, I had jumped into this is a good lesson. I had jumped into networking when I first started this business because I'm trying to like create my own reputation in a small town versus having the one that I had with him, with the window tint stuff. So I jumped into networking. I went and got on boards. I was like president of everything. I was in all these organizations. And I thought that that was going to give me enough clout and, help me get out of this little hole that I had been in with him for so long. And instead, it hurt me as a leader because I was just chasing after validation and chasing after what people thought of me versus is this really helping me? Is this really helping my business? And when I evaluated my time at that time, I had spent 40 hours over a 1 month period volunteering, as in like on the boards, organizations,
hmm,
networking, things like that. And at that moment, I charged $100 an hour, so I lost $400 that month. No, $4,000 that month. See, I don't do math. I don't do finances. I do.
me either.
I lost $4,000 that month just because I was trying to get the approval of other people. And I do say that that was a failure. I do say that that was a learning curve of how do I spend my time and what do I need to do moving forward to make sure that I'm growing as a person and a leader. And so I took those hours and started doing listening to podcasts and reading books and taking time for myself and developing myself versus just being out there and running my battery low, running my social battery low, because then I'm not
Yeah,
showing up for anybody at that point.
yeah. So the marketing broker, it's an amazing story. So you serve both startups, you serve Fortune 500 companies, and
Hmm.
that's a widespread.
Yeah.
A lot of agencies. I've never been owned an agency, but I've dealt with my position for years. Uh, we had agencies of record and worked with agencies. Um, a lot of agencies tend to pick a lane, right? They're either going to go after the small local businesses, the mom and pops, or maybe mid-sized businesses, or they're going to go after the big fish.
Yeah.
You're doing both, which I think is cool. I think that's awesome because I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that you can take from the Fortune 500 folks and apply to the smaller business. But I think there's probably, in my opinion, just my opinion, I think there's even more lessons you can take from the small businesses and how you market
Ugh.
from a small business to the Fortune 500 folks. But that's just me. But
That's
how do
true.
you? Well, so how do you scale that serving a local startup to a large business without losing that
Mm.
heart-led marketing that makes that difference? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, small businesses are my babies. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I started out with. And I would say, even if I like niched, I guess, would be small businesses, but I have become lucky or blessed enough to have Fortune 500 companies that are like, yeah, come in, be our CMO, like, see what you can do for us. And then I'll work with their marketing team. So that's kind of how I lead in that way. So I'm more of like a leader, strategist, and that kind of stuff for those people versus using my own team to do the marketing like we do for the
Okay.
smaller businesses. Um, so with the small businesses, you do learn a lot more. I mean, we have learned things from roofing to learning things about hog trapping. Like I've got a hog trap company right now, and it's one of these things where you get to learn about the person too. Like what's their passion? How do they get into this? Why do they get into this? Like that's what I really love about the smaller businesses is understanding the owner and hearing their story and knowing that like I'm going to be a part of their success one day, especially the ones that just started up, right? and they have a smaller budget. So I have kind of gone away from like the startups to more like the 3 to 5 years. They've been
Yeah.
in business a little bit. They understand marketing. Maybe they've done it on their own and they're ready to hire somebody. And so that's kind of where I'm growing into that to the Fortune 500.
Yeah.
So that way, the startups are, they just, their budgets are so small that I'm like, listen, buy my book, buy my course, figure it out. You can do this on your own. You have the time. I encourage them, coach them, that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, the lessons from them are a lot harder than the bigger ones because the bigger companies leading with heart led marketing is harder because they're usually owned by investors and
Yeah.
investors like money and that's all they care about are numbers. And I'm over here like, well, we can do that, but we're not going to grow the business online if we're not showing up as who we are. And so there's a lot of pushback in there because they don't understand that and they want to be like this big company and look really big. And I'm like, you can be successful in a large company, but you can also relate to people that are walking down the street and see that, oh, that employee works at this company. I'm going to say,
Yeah.
hey, or you know what? I recognize him from something. So the heart led marketing in that way is a lot different because there's a little bit more pushback in the bigger
And
companies.
so, again, tying it back to my experience, both for the marketing broker and for these smaller businesses that you're dealing with, um, that's actually a competitive advantage. So,
Yeah.
for myself, I didn't work for a big investor-owned utility. I didn't have to we weren't answering to stockholders that were in New York or wherever they were. We weren't trying to manipulate stock pricing,
Hmm.
on the stock market. And we had something, honestly, that money couldn't buy. We knew the folks that we serve. We call them members. Co-op calls them,
Yeah.
co-ops call them members. We genuinely knew our members, and we genuinely, we showed up. We cared, and that's a competitive advantage. And you can't, no matter, bigger and always better. And that's just something that being bigger,
Yep.
you just can't replicate. It's just not. You can't. It's part of the secret sauce. And I was just thinking back about when you might go and you might be competing with an agency out of, say, Dallas, because that's
Mm.
a large metropolitan area near you, or you may be competing, somewhere from Chicago or something like that, and they're coming in all slick, dressed up, and you're coming in your genuine self, and
Yeah.
not that you're not fixed up,
No, I get it. Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
right, but you've got a competitive advantage that those big guys just can't get, and
No, because they're all the
that's the secret
same.
sauce. Yeah, that's
They're all
that's
the same.
exactly, yeah. So one thing else I've noticed about your approach, both in the book and I've actually started reading the book, and in how you talk about your work, is radical transparency.
Yeah.
You're honest about mistakes. You don't pretend to have it all figured out. I don't. If anybody has it all figured out,
Yeah.
yeah,
Holler
they're
at us.
bluffing.
I don't
Yeah,
know. Make a
yeah.
comment. Let us know.
Well,
You be
yeah,
on the next one.
yeah, they're bluffing for one thing. But anyway, uh, that's unusual in business where everyone wants to project, this perfection. So why is transparency important to you as a leader?
So as a leader, like with my people, I make mistakes every day almost. If my marketing assistant is asking, in fact, this happened 2 days ago. She was on Slack and was like, "Hey, I was like, hey, I need you to do this." And she goes, "Oh, well, I would, but you didn't send me that." And I'm like, "I am so sorry. You're right. I did not send you that." Okay, and then I'm going and I'm sending, and so I have to be able to own up to things because if I'm not owning up to things, why do I expect them to own up to things? Right. And same thing with my kid as a mother, and this will all come full circle, I promise. As a mother, I like to make sure that she understands, like, listen, I did not do well in that moment. It's normally me in traffic. If I'm driving, that kid is laughing because I'm like pissed off that people are not driving the way they need to be driving. And then we get to where we're going, and I'm like, baby, I'm so sorry. That was not appropriate. I should not have acted that way. And so she understands, like, okay, mom shouldn't have done that. Maybe I shouldn't do that in the future. But in marketing, especially in this industry, my competitors are notorious for going, I can get you on Google in 30 days, or I
Yeah.
can get you to the first page in 90 days. It's like they put all these expectations out there and they sell this glittery box of what secrets that they have, or this big quote unquote SEO stuff that should be costing $3,000 a month, which is insane, by the way. And so they're selling these things to these small businesses or businesses in general, and they aren't following through. They're like, hey, listen, I didn't really do that. But then they've got these people locked into a contract. So these people are paying them monthly and they're not really doing anything for them. They're not actually holding up their end of the expectations that they set from the very
Yeah.
beginning. And so that is my advantage as a transparent person is or leader is when I'm going into those meetings, I'm like, listen, this is going to take time. Organic growth is going to take time. If you don't have money to spend extra on like meta ads or geofencing ads or Google ads, then it's not going to be fast. Like this is a slow burn type of process to make sure that, you
Yeah.
get the results that you're wanting. And that's why it's important to me because, sometimes I've been so transparent in competing with other people that are selling the glittery box and I don't get that account, but they holler at me a year later when their
Yeah.
contract's up and they're like, I'm so sorry I didn't go with you. And I thought that that was a bad thing at first. I was losing these like bids because I'm like, hey, listen, this is a reality. This is what's going to go on and this is what you can expect from me. And they buy into the other person learning that lesson the hard way at the other end of it.
Yeah. We used to have a phrase where we used to always say under promise, over deliver. And if you can do that, then you'll position yourself in a good space. So let's shift gears real quick and let's talk about the book. Um, Market Like a Boss. Love the title. Think it's awesome. Think it's amazing. How I turned a small startup into a thriving business using grassroots hustle and strategy. The subtitle tells a story all by itself. When you say small startup, in essence, you're talking about the marketing broker, right?
Yeah.
And so tell me about the decision to write the book,
Mm.
and what made you say I need to share what I've learned.
Yeah, and I love that I still get chills when people talk about my book. Like I'm such a nerd, and I like see it on the screen. I'm like, ah, there it is, and it's been out for like 6 months or so. But I have always loved writing. I've done it my whole life, and I have always sought out to be an author. I don't know why. That's always been a goal of mine. I want to write. I want to like share stories. I want to like teach people. And education is a really big part of what I do as well with all my podcasts that I do. I also have a boss marketing community that I have, but this book has allowed me to share specific things that I have taught people over the course of 10 years. So this book is perfect for those startups that can't hire an agency yet. They're going to learn how to market themselves without having to hire somebody, if that makes sense.
Oh
And
yeah,
I share things in there that's like hilarious stories of, a guy that cussed me out, but then was wondering why he wasn't getting business. Well, if you're talking to them like you're talking to me, then that's, probably the reason why you're not getting business. So it's a really great read for those that are looking to learn more about marketing and learning from my mistakes and my failures. There are wins in there are failures in there. But I wanted to write the book to be able to share that, as well as if you're a business owner listening to this, like writing a book validates you like having a website. It's something that people are looking at and it will help you in your marketing moving forward. It'll help you in your sales moving
yeah,
forward. And it was something I wanted to do to get to that next step of speaking at conferences and things like that. I make the joke of, I knew everything before I wrote the book, but now that I wrote the book, somehow people know that I know everything or, the things
no,
that are in
no,
there.
yeah, no, yeah, no. I know exactly what you're saying. So one of the things that reviewers keep mentioning is how practical the book is, and the and the read. It's
Yeah.
not theory. It's strategy from the trenches, real life scenarios from someone who's been there since they're 18 years old.
Yep.
So when you were writing this, how did you decide what to include, what not to include? because between the tent shop and the marketing broker, you've got a lot of experience to draw from. So how did you whittle it down so it's not like it's not
A novel.
900 pages? Yeah, a novel.
Yeah. So with this book, I wanted to be just skill based. I wanted to teach people real life tactics of how to market themselves. It's 10 chapters of how bosses market themselves. So each chapter has the word boss in it, and I'll come back to that in a second. But my next book that I'm already starting on is called Hustle Like a Boss. So that's going to be more of leadership, entrepreneurship from the age of 18. So that'll be more based about like how to own, like how to lead in a business, how to change yourself, how to understand your Enneagram, how to understand your human design. How can those like come into play? Because those are very important to me now as a leader and how I help my staff and help my clients. But BOSS is an acronym, stands for bold, opportunistic, strong, and service minded. I came up with that at 24 years old when I hired my business coach. He was like, we need to come up with an acronym so that way you can always focus on that. If you're going through a failure, come back to that BOSS acronym. If you're going through a win, come back to that BOSS acronym. If you need inspiration, have it in front of you at all times. And I wanted to share that with people. Like, listen, adapt this acronym to your own life. I want you to be able to apply it to your own life. Be bold in what you do. I want you to find opportunities. I want you to be strong and know that you deserve to be where you're at in your career, in your business, in your house, in your life. And then also being service minded, as we talked about earlier. We have to have that servant mind and leadership so that way we can continue to be successful.
That's awesome. Last question as it
Okay.
relates to the book. In there, you talk about and I say last question because this may be a long answer. Um,
Okay.
3 critical elements: confidence, consistency, and credibility. The 3 C's. So talk about those a little bit as it comes to being a leader, to being an entrepreneur, um, and how those play a role
Mm.
in in
Confidence.
in what you're doing.
Yeah. Confidence is key. When I was younger, I faked the confidence very, very well. It was one of
Fake
those
it till
like
you make it, right? Fake it till
fake
you
it
make it,
till you
right?
make it. That
Yeah,
was before the authenticity thing came into play
yeah,
with my life.
yeah.
But yeah, I confidence is important in sales and in marketing and in leadership. Let's use some examples. Like I would go into a client or potential client meeting and I would have like an off day. You know, we all have those off days. Well, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be as confident. And I would notice a shift in those meetings where they picked up on that energy of like, oh, something's weird. Like, what's going on? We don't want to give off those vibes. So I want you to continue to be confident and know that you deserve to be in that meeting. There's some meetings that I didn't think I was deserving of being in. Like, God, I'm 25 years old. Like, how did I get here? This person hired me for this. Like, how did they hear about me? Like, I don't deserve this. Like, yes, you do. You deserve to be there, and you have to understand that you deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Because when you do understand that, that confidence comes out, and you're going to sell a whole lot better. And if we think about confidence in our leadership, if I'm not confident in how I'm leading my team every Monday at 9 o'clock on our team meetings, they're going to be like, do I want to work here? Like, what's going
Yeah.
on? Like, she's not really sure if we're going to reach those goals. So, are we going to reach those goals? And so that's very important to me is showing up and being confident. And I'm not saying you're going to be confident all the time. I'm not confident all the time. I have my moments where I'm like, God, this is just not my day. I don't like what I'm wearing. I don't like how my hair looks. I don't like any of this. So I kind of take a step back and go back to that acronym of BOSS of like, okay, I need to be bold. Bold is the number one for a reason. So how can I be bold in a moment where I don't feel confident? The consistency is what I preach on. If you listen to my podcast or follow me on social, like I am all about consistency. And there's a few ways. If you are consistent in your personal life, working out, finding ways to be mentally healthy, maybe going to therapy, maybe it's you take a walk every day, whatever it is, you need to show up consistently for yourself and to prove to yourself that you are going to be a great leader or you are a great leader because that will then show up in consistency in your leadership. if you can't make a promise to yourself every day of, okay, let me say my personal thing. If I don't work out every day, walking, Peloton, maybe I'm doing some strength training, whatever it is, maybe it's literally me doing a couple of crunches and going, peace, that was my workout for today. Like I show up for myself
Yep.
every day, because if I don't, then I see that that energy flows into my leadership, and I may not show up every day for my staff when they need me. I may not show up every day for my
Yep.
clients when they need me. And that's very important to me, is showing up and being consistent. And when we're talking digital marketing wise, we have to show up online. If we're not showing up online for our clients or potential customers, how can we prove that we're going to also show up for them? Like you can't. Like we
Yep.
need to make sure we have that consistency there. And then I think those two things lead into the credibility aspect of everything, of how have you shown up for people in the past? How have you shown your leadership in the past to where you now have a credibility? Before I walk into a meeting, that person has already talked to somebody, because I'm 100% referral based when it comes to my
Yep.
business side of things. They have already talked to somebody. And so that credibility and the way that I treated that person has already sold this person before I walked in there. I think it's important.
That's awesome. So last comment about the book is, I think one of the reviewers that I was looking at the review said, and I think this is the ultimate compliment for the book, but besides it being a practical, they said that it was the perfect book for the entrepreneur wearing every hat. And I think that's great. I mean, you've written a book
Yeah.
for someone who is having to do it all. And I think when we share from experiences, it's genuine, it's authentic, and obviously you were that entrepreneur wearing every hat when you were 18 years old. So I think that's awesome. So last got a couple questions left. The last one, and then I've got some. We do something called rapid fire, fun questions, serious
Okay.
questions, where the first thing. But before I ask you that, um, if someone's watching the show or going to listen to this show, and they're thinking about starting a business, they may be 18, 20, 22 years old, whatever. They're scared.
Yeah.
What would you tell them? And what would you tell them? And what's the one thing that they need to understand before taking that leap?
First of all, just freaking do it. The end. Period.
Yeah.
Do it. You have a burning fire already, and if you even have the thought of, I think I want to own a business, then you're made for it. Because people that aren't made for it
Yeah.
don't just think that.
Don't think about it.
And I think that the number one tip for that is to know that, okay, set expectations out correctly for yourself. You may want to own a business because you don't want to work for somebody. Okay, I get that. But also understand you will be working for hundreds of people. In fact, I work for hundreds of people because those are my customers, those are my clients. So
That's
you're
right.
technically still going to be working for somebody. And then also, if you say, I want to start a business because I want to make a lot of money, absolutely, totally get it. Let's make some money, but it's going to take a hot second. You've got to build up that credibility. You've got to build up that presence and your sales. And so the last thing that people start businesses over is, well, I want to do anything with my time. I want to not work from 9 to 5. I want to work whenever I want to work. Let me tell you, I work more than any of my friends that have an 8 to 5 job or 9 to 5 job. I'm putting in more hours because you know what? When you go to bed, you're thinking about it. When you wake
Oh,
up,
absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
thinking about it. That kind of stuff. But just do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for. Be careful that 9 to 5, that 8 to 5, 9 to 5 thing. I want to work
Yeah.
whenever I want to, because it can become obsessive. So rapid fire, real quick. First thing that
Okay.
comes to your mind: coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
If you could go back to your 18-year-old self on day one of the business ownership, what's the one thing that you would tell her?
It's going to be hard.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Me too. Best business decision you ever made?
Starting a business.
Window tint or signs, which part of that first business did you enjoy more?
Definitely signs. Still doing it.
Biggest leadership myth that needs to die.
Oh, you have to be a certain age to be a leader.
What gets you out of bed in the morning?
My
Besides your
5-year-old
kid,
daughter.
I was going to say besides your kid. No, but that's fine. That's
No.
fine. No, that's fine because I totally understand. I have my kids are older. I've got a 26-year-old and a 30-year-old, but I do have two dogs, and they get me out of bed in the morning. So,
Yeah.
one leadership habit you practice every day, every single day, without fail.
Following my calendar,
Okay.
setting my time aside. Yeah.
Okay. If you could have coffee with any business leader, living or dead, who would it be?
Ed Milet.
Ed Millett. Tell me who Ed Millett is.
Oh, he is a huge leadership, I guess, guru, and he's kind of my idol. I listen to his podcast every day.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's
Most
alive.
definitely. Okay. Last one. Yeah, he's alive. That's a good thing. Last one. Most underrated leadership skill that nobody talks about.
Oh gosh, most underrated leadership skill.
I've got a
I think
good
it
one.
would be, yeah, I think it would be like showing up for yourself. How do you show up for yourself?
That's a great one. I would say listening. I think people
Oh, that's a good one.
people don't talk a lot about listening. They think as leaders, it's what people follow you. They hear you. But I
Yeah.
think listening. But I definitely agree with what you're saying. Showing up for yourself and making time and taking time for yourself to keep that sanity, right? And I
Right.
love what you said. And we're delving from the rapid fire, but I love what you said about working out, even if it's doing a couple crunches, and just saying, "Hey, I did it. I'm done. Let's move on." Because that's showing up for yourself and making time for yourself. Because in life and business, especially with what you do, you have no idea what's going to come up that day, and that's a fun thing sometimes, but sometimes it can be a little scary. So I think showing up for yourself is a great answer. So Shelby, this has been fantastic. It's been awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for the time. And I'm going to pop back over again. If you're watching this and you enjoyed it and you want to learn more, obviously Market Like a Boss, Shelby McFarland, CEO, the marketing broker. There's her email address. You're brave to I put your cell phone on there. Maybe I'll mark it out or something.
That's fine. No,
but
it's cool.
but got that on there. Themarketingbroker.com and there's some ways to follow you on Instagram, LinkedIn. I know you're on LinkedIn because that's how we connected.
Yep.
I'm assuming some Instagram things and I don't know if you're on TikTok and X and all that stuff. Okay, so you're on all social media, which is understandable. That's what you do. So anyway, so again, thank you so much, and have a great day, and appreciate the time.
Thank you.
That was Shelby McFarland, CEO of The Marketing Broker and author of Market Like a Boss. You know, during my work career, I learned that the best leaders aren't the ones with all the answers. They're the ones who ask the right questions and genuinely care about their people. Shelby owned her first business at 18. At 22, she started The Marketing Broker. And today, she's competing with agencies 10 times her size, serving startups, small businesses, and Fortune 500 companies, all while being a mom and an advocate for women in leadership. But here's what matters most. She's doing it authentically, leading with heart, and it's working. If you're a young entrepreneur worried that you're too inexperienced, Shelby's story proves that authenticity matters more than age. If this resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And please leave a review. It can help others find these conversations. This podcast is brought to you by BLC Consulting, LLC. We're a communications and organizational strategy group working with service-related businesses. You can learn more at blcconsultingllc.com. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading with heart. I'm Steve Goodson. Thank you for joining me on the couch.